For decades, he stood beneath the spotlight with a grin so effortless it felt permanent. The timing was perfect. The punchlines landed like clockwork. To millions, he was the embodiment of charm, patriotism, and laughter. But behind the applause, behind the USO stages and the glittering Hollywood galas, there was a silence that followed him home. And in that silence, a different story was unfolding. One so carefully guarded that even those closest to him never saw the full picture. Bob Hope built a career on being everywhere at once. From radio waves to movie screens, from golf courses to war zones, he seemed tireless. Audiences saw a man devoted to entertaining troops, standing shoulder to shoulder with young soldiers far from home. He joked about danger. He diffused fear with laughter. But what if the real performance wasn't happening on stage? What if the greatest act of his life began when the curtain fell? In the 1940s and 50s, America adored him. He starred alongside icons, delivered monologues that crackled with wit, and cultivated the image of a devoted husband to his wife, Dolores. Their marriage was presented as steady, almost untouchable, a Hollywood rarity. Photographs showed them smiling at premieres, hosting elegant gatherings, embodying a kind of aspirational normalcy. But behind closed doors, rumors whispered through studio corridors. Assistants noticed patterns. Late-night calls. Private trips that didn't make. The press. Was it simply the myth-making machine of Hollywood? Or was there something deeper, something sustained over decades? Those who traveled with him on overseas tours described two versions of the same man. There was the public figure, generous, energetic, tireless in his commitment to troops. And then there was the intensely private individual who guarded his personal schedule with almost military precision. Hotel floors would be quietly reserved. Security would tighten. Certain names were never spoken in official itineraries. Hollywood in its golden age thrived on illusion. Studios protected stars. Scandals were buried. Careers depended on it. In that environment, discretion wasn't just courtesy, it was currency. And Bob Hope understood the system better than most. He had worked too hard to risk it all. From vaudeville beginnings to becoming one of the most recognized entertainers in the world, he knew how fragile fame could be. Yet for nearly 30 years, a parallel narrative quietly unfolded. Close friends later hinted at long-term relationships that stretched far beyond fleeting Hollywood affairs. Some described women who weren't passing flings but fixtures, relationships that endured across decades. Hidden in plain sight, carefully scheduled meetings, gifts sent discreetly, apartments maintained under layers of anonymity. How does someone live in two worlds for that long? How do you memorize the details of two lives, the anniversaries, the promises, the expectations, without ever letting one bleed into the other? There were moments when the facade nearly cracked. A photographer once lingered too long outside a hotel. A journalist began asking uncomfortable questions. Each time, the machine responded swiftly. Stories softened, headlines redirected. The public narrative remained intact. The tireless entertainer, the devoted family man, the symbol of stability in an unstable industry. Meanwhile, at home, Dolores maintained her composure. Devout, disciplined, unwavering in public. Some have speculated she knew more than she ever acknowledged. Others believe she chose not to see it, understanding the cost of exposure, not just to reputation, but to legacy. Was it denial, loyalty, or a quiet negotiation between love and survival? As decades passed, the world changed. The old studio system crumbled. Tabloids grew bolder. Secrets became harder to contain. Yet remarkably, the full extent of his double life never exploded into a defining scandal. Instead, it lingered in half-confirmed anecdotes and memoir footnotes. A whisper rather than a headline. When he aged, when the tours slowed and the lights dimmed, those closest to him described a man. Increasingly reflective, success had insulated him for years. But in private conversations, there were hints of reckoning, questions about choices, about time lost, about the delicate architecture of the life he'd built. What does it mean to be adored by millions, yet divided within yourself? Is the applause enough to drown out the compromises? Or does the silence at night grow louder with age? In the end, the public memory of Bob Hope remains largely intact. The quick wit, the tireless tours, the image of patriotic devotion, but history has a way of widening its lens. It asks harder questions. It looks beyond the stage lights and into the shadows where complicated truths reside. Perhaps the most haunting part isn't the secrecy itself, but the endurance of it. 30 years is not a momentary lapse. It's a parallel existence. Its birthdays celebrated twice. Its emotions, comfort. It's a balancing act performed without rehearsal. And maybe that was his greatest performance, not the monologues delivered to soldiers or the jokes shared with presidents, but the ability to convince an entire nation that they were seeing the whole man. In the end, we're left with a paradox. A figure who brought comfort and laughter to countless lives, yet navigated his own with layers of concealment. Does that diminish the joy he gave? Or does it simply remind us that even icons are human, flawed, complex, capable of living in contradiction? When the spotlight fades and the applause becomes memory, what remains is not just legacy, but truth. And sometimes, the most extraordinary stories aren't about the life we see, but the one carefully hidden just beyond the curtain.